My history school teacher said, Tracy, you're definitely going to be the woman behind the CEO. And I was thinking, that doesn't sound cute. I want to be the CEO. I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was the second child, second one of my mother's children. When I was born, my mother got sick in the hospital, so my grandmother had to bring me home with her for literally almost a week. And it's interesting, they say, the person that the child bonds with first is the person that they're always closest to. So it probably explains why I was very close to my grandmother and why she felt so close to me. My mother drove the city bus. And on Saturdays, she had the downtown route. Like her bus was going from one end of town to the other. And oftentimes, just because she didn't want me to just be over there being idle with my grandmother and talking grown people talk and drinking coffee and soda, which my grandmother allowed, she basically would say, you're gonna get up, go into work with me at 5 a.m., ride on the bus until 9. At 9 a.m., the public library opens.
Tracy was real smart. I think it was probably maybe about 4, because she used to read a book. And everybody thought she was reading. She was reading pictures, and everybody thought she was reading the book, And nobody knew, because she was just that, she was just that girl.
When I started getting dropped off at the library, I started to actually discover that books had volumes like Shakespeare, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. So I basically challenged myself to see how many of these volumes of books that I could get through over these summer Saturdays. Just in general, I realize now in retrospect that being a reader early on and just a reader of great writing, it really serves me as a producer. I often tell people like, no, I'm not a writer, but I've read some of the best writing ever written. So I am clear about great structure and story just based on that.
Growing up with Tracy was very interesting. She's a lot smarter than everyone in the family. So therefore you had to be challenged a little bit. When education was concerned for my mother.
Growing up with Tracy was fun, but at the same time, I felt like we had so many experiences where she was grooming me, really for my future.
Growing up, I was considered gifted. I associated with the gifted children in my classroom, but I also hung out with the jocks and the cheerleaders. And then I would also actually was cool with the kids who were smoking in the bathroom when I was the hall monitor as well. Because I didn't really want to be like telling on anyone. So I just made friends with them and connected with them in a way to convince them to stop doing it, especially when I was on monitor duty.
If I had to come up with a list of words to describe Tracy, the first one that would pop into my mind is sharp. Sharp wit, sharp mind, sharp tongue. Always. She was a little bit of a smartass, which is, I think, what drew me to her. She was also crazy smart, funny, and really, really kind to everyone. She was one of those people who was able to flow easily in and out of groups of people and transcended cliques. And in middle school and high school, that's nearly impossible to do, but she was able to do that.
I also sold my lunch, my homemade lunch, rather. My parents just said we couldn't afford lunch. Therefore, I mean, I remember just saying, "Can't we just get free lunch?" And my dad flipped. There's no such thing as free lunch. All right, cool. I'll just take the lunch. Just chill. One of my classmates, he actually wanted the homemade lunch. So I basically negotiated with him to sell it to him for, I think it was like $2 or $3. But then he decided that my he needed two sandwiches, not one. And then I decided I needed to up the price. Then I just started realizing that I like transactions. Like, I like making transactions. I like saying, "Oh, you want to get this? Then what do you have to give me for this?" So I have to thank my mother for literally probably turning me into a producer, and my grandmother for giving me my entrepreneurial spirit. Another thing that I really enjoyed doing in high school was working for the school paper. And my senior year, I became the editor of the school paper. Which, so obviously I had this love for journalism and reading again, and this like really sort of just I ended up sort of transitioning doing this as well as my first job in college. So I've always had this thing for words, books, reading, and just great story was just like something that always sort of like definitely fulfilled me. But I never was, it wasn't about the writing. It really was about the reading and following great story and the exploratory, like, that did for me. I attended Memphis State University, um, honestly, because they gave me a full academic scholarship, and my mother was just determined that I was going wherever it was going to be the most free. But growing up, my grandmother really, she always instilled in me there was like two places to live outside of Chattanooga: Atlanta or New York. That's it. And I always had my sights on Atlanta. Mayor Jackson was the mayor. He was black. Perhaps I could become a mayor someday. And it was just like, it was just the big city to us. Chattanooga's 70 miles outside of Atlanta, and Atlanta was just a big city. But unfortunately, I had to make a detour to Memphis first to go to college. So I landed in Memphis. I'm going to college there. Initially, I was a pre-med major, but that changed really swiftly because I realized I didn't really like science that much. I was good at it. I could do well in it, but I didn't love it.
I just wanted her to go to doctor school, and she said, "I'm not gonna be no doctor."
So I switched my major, and I wanted to get a job, and I needed to get a job on campus. So I actually went and started to work for the school paper. Eventually, I became one of the editors of the paper, and I was basically approving story and copy and continuing to make it function. And I did that up until about my junior year of college. Another little side business, well, you might want to call it a hustle. I'm just by nature a good test taker. Basically, there were a very small amount of African American kids that went to the school, and most of them were athletes. So once I started to get into course study, the guys were like, "Hey, who is that girl? She rides the bike," and asking questions. "Oh, you go to school on academic scholarship. You must be smart." So they were asking me about helping them with tests. Um, and I saw an opportunity for myself to actually make some cash. I agreed to assist with testing for the low price of $50 per person per test. I also negotiated that I would assist with research papers provided that the individual that they were being afforded to them for free through the university to type theirs would type mine. So basically, again, it was just this sort of fed my whole aura of making business moves, negotiating deals, and making money.
In college, Tracey was really like a mother figure. So when I would come and visit her, she was always just very nurturing and very kind and a giving person. I think that Tracey is just innately that way. Like she's always trying to invest in youth. So as a young girl, being around her, especially during her college years, was incredibly educational for me.
I also was a bartender and a server at several different restaurants in the city, which also I think helped to hone my people skills. And interesting enough, it was Memphis. It was the late '80s, so there's still some level of racism there. I remember one being one of the only black servers at a restaurant called Houston's, and then once also waiting on Elvis Presley's former manager, who actually my manager was nervous about me actually serving him at the bar because it was known that they did not like black people and may feel some kind of way having a black person serve or touch their drink or food. But I actually was able to successfully sort of break a wall with this guy and serve him, and to the point that he actually even tipped me $100.
When she set her mind to what she wants, there's no stopping her. It's like a freight train. Can't stop a freight train. Even with the brakes on, it's not going to stop. And she's awesome.